Alright, boys and girls, this is Benjamin Bachshort. We are back in F1 in 24. Now, I finally started doing some online races again, but as you can see from these first two races, they haven't really been all that fun. Now, this was just a regular open lobby. Started with like 4 or 5 drivers. By the time we got into the race, there was only 2 of us left. The other guy spun out at the start of the race, and then he quit halfway through the race. So this was literally like 9 laps of me just racing by myself. Towards the end of the race. So it didn't start off all that great for us. I think it's been a couple weeks since we've done any online races, only because ranked is such a mess that nobody's really playing it right now. And then even when you're racing in regular open lobbies, this game hasn't sold enough copies to have enough players to really get a good lobby going. Now, this was our second race. We were in a ranked race, qualified on pole, and we qualified much better than everybody else. I think 2 guys were disqualified. The only major thing that happened going into turn 1 here, we went out super wide to avoid the player in P2, and then he goes out wide and hits us anyway, drives himself into the wall. We're going to take a look at the replay here just to show you that it wasn't really me. We go around, he locks up. I pretty much keep my line, and then he kind of hooks into our rear tire there, and he goes off. And then from then on, it was just pretty much the same thing as the race at Spain, us way ahead in the lead, just kind of driving off into the distance. So yeah, the first 2 races weren't really all that fun. Now, the third race that you're about to see was just a regular open lobby. We didn't get into qualifying, so we started P8. I'm not quite sure if the cars were set to equal. I think they were, but for some reason the cars felt like, this McLaren felt like it was locking up quite a bit. So we're in P8. I have no intention of trying to fight for positions on this first lap. Weirdly enough, not too much crazy of a mess going into turn 1 there. Looks like everybody made it out clean. I didn't see any carbon fiber or anything like that. Now, the guy on pole, outqualified everybody by like 3 seconds, so I was like, yeah, we maybe have a chance here. Cleric Man going off a little bit wide. As you can see, we're not really using too much deployment. We only used a little bit to try and keep up with the pack, but now that we're about to head into this right-hander here, I went down to none just to try and stay back a little bit. It's a good tip for anybody that's racing in public lobbies. Now, Cleric Man goes out wide. Charlie is ghosted out, and then we go around him, and then he ghosts back in, and then of course just goes out wide and hits us, because that's just open lobbies for you. Now, there was another guy, Badam the Killer, who got into a bit of a mess and started falling back as well. So we've gained 2 positions from merely just staying behind the group and letting the trash get collected. So now sitting in P7, and we are not going to use much of our battery here. I know it's easy to harvest battery, but I like to just keep 100% on my battery as much as possible early on in the race, especially when you have these types of drivers in front of you. So the 2 guys in front of us jockeying for position there, a lot of contact with these cars ahead of us. The leader isn't really that far off. Now, he did start on the mediums, so that could kind of account for why he hasn't pulled away quite yet. But, you know, slipstream and stuff like that. Slipstream and ERS are quite OP. DRS not enabled just yet. Charlie kind of hopping the curb there. A little bit more contact in the bus stop chicane there. And we're still at about over 80% battery here in P7. And the most important thing, no damage to the car just yet. And yeah, I don't know, for some reason it felt like the car kept locking up more than usual. Now, this is just a time trial setup, and I didn't do much. Like, I didn't do any running at Spa prior to this race, so it could have just been me not being used to the track. But it did feel like the car was locking up quite more than usual. Going down the Kemmel Straight here, leader just making that right-hand turn into the chicane, so we're not too far behind here. Guys already flashing. They could just be conserving battery, but I have a feeling the way these guys are racing, they're probably just spamming battery to try and get ahead of the car ahead of them. Even though there's 4 cars fighting for a position here, which really doesn't make sense. So we're just losing time here. Guys, if you're in a situation like this, fighting this early doesn't really make much sense. You still have 9 laps left to go. Haven't even made a pit stop yet, and we're losing time to the leaders at this point. Now, if you know, there was only like 2 cars as 2 cars go into each other. I probably would have tried to overtake, but since there were 4 cars there and they were going like 3 wide into some corners, I was like, maybe it's better to just not overtake or try to overtake. Now we're right on the grill of Charlie XX here, and I decided let's try and make a move here to go for the overtake. Didn't look like he was driving all that well. The leader was starting to pull away a little bit at this point, and P2 was starting to get a gap as well. Now I'm kind of going a little bit conservative into this corner just because this guy in front of us looks like he's driving on a controller, but Charlie just looks like he's only paying attention to the 2 feet of road in front of him and not the cars ahead of that. So again, I think he tapped us in the rear there. The King 1973 definitely looking like he's driving on a controller, as you can see the snappy left-right movements on his car. So I was like, all right, this should be an easy overtake. We still have about 50% battery going up Radeon. And so we get the overtake done nice and easy there. I'm pretty sure he's all out of battery now, and I was like, I swear to God, Charlie, if you dive down the inside here. And he kind of does, so we have to leave him a little bit of room, kind of takes us off our line as well. So we're losing a little bit of lap time because of that. And then going into this corner, I should have seen that coming. Does he give the position back? Of course he doesn't, just because this is how people drive in open lobbies. So I was like, all right, I guess that's just how we're gonna race now. So fortunately, no damage onto our car, and like I said, this guy wasn't super quick anyway. Just, I don't really know how he was able to keep up with us. I'm sure the DRS helped out with that. So we go into this corner here. I'm not going to give him any room. He just turns in on us for some reason. And I was like, okay, well, he got the worst of that anyway. And then going into Stavlo here, he goes out a little bit too wide on exit, gets on the gravel there, and then he starts falling back a little bit further. So now we have a little bit of breathing room behind us. 6 seconds to Lucas HD Gaming in P1. I'm surprised we haven't even lost that much time. Only about 6 seconds while we were sitting behind all those slower drivers fighting for position. SRFZZZ ahead of us now, 1.5 seconds. But Stop Chicane was giving me trouble for some reason. I don't know why. As SRFZZZ goes out wide in the chicane. But that does get us within 1 second. And it should be another easy overtake here coming up. So yeah, maybe just could have been. I haven't driven Spa in quite a bit, but wasn't really feeling too comfortable. This is just the time trial setup, I think 15.4 wings, and yeah, having a lot of logging up issues, but we still managed to make it up to P3 without getting damage to our car. Get DRS going down the Kimmel Straight here. He's only about half a second ahead of us. Decided not to go for the move, so we turned the battery deployment off. We didn't have much battery anyway, and there was really no point in spamming battery down there, down the Kimmel Straight, just to stay behind him. So we decided to just turn off the battery and stay behind for one more lap. Somehow we managed to gain time on the leader here. We were at about 6 seconds behind him when we got up into P3, and then we were down to about 5.5, 5.2 at one point behind him. So I don't know if he made a mistake or whatever, but we did gain a little bit of time. Driver ahead going out a little bit wide there again, and then we're starting to conserve our battery, over 70% now. I think we've been on none pretty much since the start of Sector 2. So as you can see, not using much battery deployment, and we are still able to sit close behind this driver here. So after going like a couple of races where the racing just wasn't fun, we finally started a race in last place, or second to last place, and we actually got a pretty decent race here. I was a bit aggravated with the cars ahead of us, but I mean, that's just, you got to deal with that in open lobbies. So going into the bus stop chicane there, driver behind decides to go in, and I was like, I'm not even going to worry about that. He wasn't super quick. We're 5 seconds behind the leader now, and I don't think we have to worry too much about the cars behind us at this point. So we stop for our pit stop on the next lap, and as you can see, they're just rounding turn 1 right now, the cars behind us. So again, no threat behind. They're 5 seconds behind now, 22 seconds to the leader. We are on the mediums. He will be on the softs and the faster tire. I don't know if the 6 seconds we lost stuck behind slower traffic is going to prevent us from winning this race, but as we come around the start of the next lap and Lucas comes out of the pits, we have gained a little bit of time. So just about 1 second or so from our out lap, and the time is going down here for some reason as well. End of the next lap, we're down to 3.3 seconds. His tires are going to be much quicker than ours. We set the fastest lap here, and he is 3.5 seconds ahead now, but I'm sure he's saving battery. I mean, he's been in lead since the beginning of the race, really no need to deploy battery. He sets the fastest lap on the next lap, and we are back up to 4.5 seconds with 3 laps to go. And I was like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to catch up with him, because he's on the faster tire, and the tires seem to last pretty well here at Spa. Start lap number 10 now. We are only 3.2 behind. Seems like a lot of time to be making up. So if we would have cleared the traffic a little bit faster earlier on in the race, I think we probably would have won. Or if we had like qualified P2, we probably would have won. It seemed like we did have the pace on this guy, and he probably would have been able to stick with us with DRS, but just starting in 8th place and losing 6 seconds to the slower drivers ahead. Started lap number 11, the final lap now, and we're 2 seconds behind. We have no battery left, and I think his softs are still in pretty good condition here, so there's really nothing we could do at this point other than look back in hindsight and think we should have been a little bit more aggressive. But it was a decent race, you know, having to go around those mobile chicanes. Generally, when you start on pole, unless the drivers behind are, you know, like within a half a second of you, you're pretty much having a pretty lonely race like Lucas did in this race. So I feel like starting from the back is much more fun, a little bit more aggravating, actually a lot more aggravating, I should say. But yeah, it's probably more fun anyway. It's just open lobbies, no ranks or anything like that. I would do more ranked races, but there's only like 4,000 people playing ranked every week, which is crazy considering last year there was like 20, 25,000, 30,000 players from week to week. But the ranked races this year are just terrible. But anyway, this is our foray back into online races. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you think I'm going to, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember to eat a bak choy. I'll see you all in the next one.